We are less than a day from another launch attempt for Artemis 1, Space Launch System, and the Orion spacecraft. Y'all, the hype's getting real again. I can feel it. I can feel it. I want this to happen so badly. So many people have come back into town. I can feel it with the NASA social group. We are all hyped and ready to go. It's been a long wait since Monday. Let's get this going. But before that, another day at Kennedy Space Center. This time a rope drop Atlantis. Back at Kennedy Space Center, and today, first thing on the docket is Atlantis. So inside is the orbiter that actually was in space. Let's go check it out. If you have not been to Kennedy Space Center to experience the reveal for Space Shuttle Atlantis, and you have a love for space, and you remember growing up and watching the space shuttle, you've got to get here. The pre-show, the pre-pre-show, then the pre-show, then the reveal is electric, phenomenal, incredible. It'll bring tears to your eyes. You get emotional. When you rope drop Atlantis, and you're the only one in the pre-show. This is awesome. It's incredible. It is an incredible sight. Okay, what else is in the building? Plenty of exhibits around what the space shuttle did, as well as the other shuttles and the history there too. Lots of simulators. These simulators from landing to docking to using the arms of the space shuttle. Lots of different simulators. Very interactive exhibit for you and your family to enjoy. And then there are memorials for Challenger and Columbia. And also really emotional. You see obviously photos of all the astronauts plus personal items for each of the astronauts, short bios as well, and even have pieces of Columbia and Challenger on display. So it's really just touching and moving to be able to see those pieces and just to see the memorials to those astronauts. The other building I went to today was Heroes and Legends, that also features the Astronaut Hall of Fame. Also, great pre-show. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job at Kennedy Space Center of making it interactive, making it fun, and really getting the queuing down with these pre-shows to queue and set up how many people are in the building at once. I really appreciate that a lot as a Disney person, the pre-shows, but Heroes and Legends does the exact same thing. Great pre-shows, great exhibits as well of what makes a hero, and lots of different footage and interviews with so many different astronauts and people that have been a part of the space program. You can spend a lot of time in there just learning backstories and learning so much from these astronauts, and then obviously walking through the Hall of Fame. And what's really cool is Ray said, and she actually spoke at Schermerhorn Symphony Center a few years ago, so I had a chance to meet her. So that was a lot of fun as well back then, but it was great just to see her picture up at the Astronaut Hall of Fame. Hey, and then the highlight of the day was another chat with an astronaut. This time it was Susan Kilrain. When she was on the mission, she was Susan Still, and she was a pilot. She was the pilot, which learned that there's no co-pilot. The commander's the pilot. She's actually the co-pilot, but no pilot in their right mind is going to let themselves be called a co-pilot. But great information from her. A lot more people in there today than yesterday. Lots of great questions from children, which was fantastic to see. Just their eyes lighting up to be able to talk to an astronaut and ask questions to an astronaut was pretty fantastic to see. But she was great, and I asked her some questions, just ranging from her mission to getting more people and more children involved in STEM, what we can do as adults.
So STS-83 had to be cut short, and then you were able to reignite the mission with STS-94. What was that emotional feeling like to have that end short, and how did you reinvigorate yourself, or did it take any of that to get back into it for STS-94?
He's right. STS-83 was cut short due to a malfunction that they discovered shortly after we got in space, and we came home and landed just at the beginning of our 4th day. When we got the word that we were going to have to come home, there was a little disappointment. There was a lot of disappointment for the payload specialists because this was their one and only chance to fly in space. And for the commander, he was in charge. But for me, I'm a pilot. I got to get up there, got to go around the Earth a few times, was going to come home. So I got to do everything I was supposed to do anyway. And to get to go again, it was like 2 for the price of 1. You can't beat it. It was, it was a twofer. So I was very fine with it all. 2 out of our 3 electrical systems, so we had to redo all the checklists to accommodate the fact that we were short on electrical power. And so I spent the next day and a half updating all the checklists, all the emergency procedures, all the normal checklists, so that we could come home safely. Or not. Well, we'll start back to what happened when I was young, and I went to my dad and said, I want to be a pilot when I grow up. And he said, that's great. And so he didn't discourage me in any way. He used to take us to the airport to watch the airplanes take off and land for fun, and that's what inspired me to want to be a pilot. And just laying around looking at the stars inspired me to fly further and faster and higher and better airplanes, bigger airplanes. And so it sort of just developed in my love of flying. Who flies in space? For me, coming from the Navy, entering NASA was like a breath of fresh air because NASA had already integrated women completely, and the Navy was still struggling to make that happen. But there weren't as many African American women. In fact, there's only one African American woman who's flown more than once in space. That's Stephanie Wilson. And she may be one of the astronauts that lands on the moon when Artemis goes to the moon with people. NASA is definitely making the right moves in getting the demographics of our country into space. And that includes people of color, women of color, men. It includes everybody, even, LGBT, all of the demographics, because it's, in addition to doing the mission, it's about inspiring the youth to want to be in STEM fields, so there's a huge part of that. I mean, when Apollo went to the moon, how many men young boys did it inspire to grow up and do STEM fields because they wanted to go to space? And they may not have ever gone to space, but it's such an inspiration. Definitely, we have the first black woman director is the director of Johnson Space Center, where all the astronauts train. There's a woman director here at the Kennedy Space Center.
There's an African American woman up on orbit right now.
There's an African, so yes. The short answer to your question is yes. I will know that we have done our job when we're no longer talking about the first woman, the first person of color, the first black woman, when it's just astronauts. And we're no longer talking about the demographics of them.
You mentioned the word gravity earlier. There are a lot of space movies out there. Which are your favorites and which are your least favorites?
Favorite space movies? I liked Apollo 13. I love The Martian. And Gravity I like for the special effects. I didn't like that they killed George Clooney off at the beginning. The story wasn't realistic, but I love the special effects. I like the old stuff, the right stuff, the space cowboys, Can't say I liked Armageddon at all. So I like science fiction.
So on your mission, you served as the pilot, but there are so many different labs and experiments going on. Is there anything that you took away from what the rest of your crew was doing? Anything you learned from them?
Yeah, it was a science mission, and as a pilot, I wasn't assigned any science to do. I had all the other jobs, like keeping the computers up and running, and just the variety. I was the photographer, the doctor, the maintenance person, the trash compactor. I had all these other jobs that kept me relatively busy in space. The only science I took part in was taking pictures of the plants growing in the greenhouse. So what we did on orbit, I didn't really take a lot away from, but I know that our science that we did with the metal alloys ended up in golf clubs later on, ended up in iPhones later on, so it was all very worthwhile for life here on Earth. Same with the combustion experiments.
You mentioned Apollo inspiring so many men, and now you're involved in STEM as well and pushing that, knowing that Artemis is going to inspire so many more people, especially women and people of color. What can people that are past our prime for getting really involved in it do to help encourage children, the Artemis generation, to get involved in STEM and push towards Mars?
How do y'all, the adults, encourage students to get involved in STEM programs? And that's simple, because with social media and the internet now, you can show them that people that look like them, that came from where they come from, the people that everybody is flying in space, and so it's possible. When I decided I wanted to be an astronaut, it was a long while before any woman, other than a couple of Russian women who I had never even heard about, flew in space. But now with the internet, every single person when they're flying in space, and so it's easier, so much easier to inspire kids these days. And kids like hands-on stuff. So if you can show them experiments from space, and if you can show them, bring them to the visitor center or whatever, they'll get inspired all on their own. Make it fun.
You've literally got the answer to your own question right there in your hand.
That's right.
You can reach a lot of people with that stuff.
All right, that was day 2 on my 2-day journey at Kennedy Space Center. Again, let's get this baby going. Let's get Artemis 1 launched. Again on Saturday, 2:17 p.m. Eastern, that's 1:17 p.m. Central is when the window opens up. It's a 2-hour window. You can stream it live on NASA's YouTube, Twitch, their website. You're going to be able to find it. Just follow the appropriate NASA channels. I'll be sure to retweet it as well. Call time for me is 6 a.m. That's not 1:30, but it's still pretty early. So we're going to be venturing out pretty early in the morning to get out to Kennedy Space Center to get prepped for that at the VAB. So thankful for NASA Social for allowing us to come back and to do this. And again, thank you so much to everyone for your support. Thanks to My Dog's Paws for everything that you've done. And thank you to family and friends that have supported me on this journey. Let's go watch a rocket launch to the moon.